Hi everyone, U.S. immigration lawyer Michael Ashoori here, and in today's video, I want to talk about who is not a good candidate for the E2 visa. Oftentimes, we talk about the requirements for how to qualify for an E2 visa or the benefits of an E2 visa, but in today's video, I specifically want to talk about who is not a good candidate for this visa. I think you're going to find this information helpful, so let's get started. Very quick overview. The E2 visa is an investor visa where somebody can invest in a business in the United States, and based on making that investment, they can live in the United States and they can operate their business. So with that overview, let's jump right into the different categories of people who may not be a good fit for the E2 visa. Now, the first grouping of people who are not a good candidate for an E2 visa are people that do not have citizenship to an E2 treaty country. The E2 visa is only available to citizens of certain countries that have an E2 treaty with the United States. There are many countries that have an E2 treaty with the United States, from France, South Korea, to Colombia, Canada, Mexico, many European countries, and the list goes on. But of course, there are many countries that do not have an E2 treaty with the United States, such as Russia, India, and China. Again, because the E2 visa is only available to citizens that have an E2 treaty with the United States, if you are not a citizen of one of these countries, then the E2 visa will likely not be a viable option for you. Now, a couple of exceptions to this. If you are married to somebody that is a citizen of a country that has an E2 treaty with the United States, then your spouse can be the principal applicant. They can be the investor on an E2 visa case because they have citizenship to an E2 treaty country. And you can be the derivative beneficiary, basically the dependent of that case. However, you would not be eligible to be the principal applicant of that case if you do not have citizenship to an E2 treaty country. Another thing that I want to mention, in some cases, there are ways to get citizenship to an E2 treaty country, and then using the citizenship that you acquire to that E2 treaty country, you can then apply for an E2 visa. Now, this has been more common in the past, but the immigration regulations have recently changed to make this more challenging to do, specifically in cases where somebody gets citizenship to an E2 treaty country by some sort of a financial means, for example, by making an investment in that country. Again, that's point number one. To recap, if you're not a citizen of an E2 treaty country, the E2 visa is likely not a suitable option for you, unless you fall into one of those exceptions that I spoke about just now. The second classification of people that the E2 visa likely won't be suitable for is people that do not have funds to invest. The E2 visa, again, it's an investor visa. And one of the critical requirements for the E2 visa is that you make a substantial investment in a US business. Now, what amount is substantial? There is no specific dollar amount that's classified as substantial. It's relative to the business, and there's various factors that the immigration regulations discuss on how an immigration officer is to evaluate whether an investment is substantial or not. Typically, in my practice, I've seen clients have a high degree of success when investing at least $100,000 or more. And again, it is specific to the particular business, but I have seen investments for less than $100,000 get approved. So going back to this example of a situation where the E2 visa may not be suitable for you is if you don't have any funds to invest, because again, the E2 visa does require you to make a substantial investment. Now, a couple of points that I want to mention. There are multiple sources of investment funds or capital that you can consider as part of your E2 investment. For example, if you get a gift from a family member or a friend, that could potentially qualify as the basis for your E2 investment. For example, let's say that you have a parent or a friend that gifts you $50,000. That could potentially be used as part of your E2 investment. Additionally, capital other than cash can also be considered as part of your investment. So let's say that you own certain inventory or equipment that can be used for your E2 business. You can personally contribute that equipment to the E2 business, and that equipment or that inventory can potentially qualify as part of your overall E2 investment. So those are just some helpful tips that I want to mention. But again, going back to the original point, if you do not have access to any investment capital, then the E2 visa is likely not a suitable option for you. Going to point number 3 of what would make the E2 visa not a suitable option for somebody. And this is if you have no interest in operating a business in the United States. So the E2 visa requires you to direct and develop the business. As an E2 investor, you are required to seek entry to the United States for the purpose of directing and developing a business, specifically your E2 business. If you have no interest in running a business, then the E2 visa is likely not a suitable option for you. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to be slaving away. For example, if you're going to be opening a restaurant, that you need to be the chef of the restaurant, the busboy, the waiter, etc. Actually, conversely, by directing and developing the business, you're not really supposed to be doing the base level work of the business that you're running. You're supposed to be, as the regulations specify, directing and developing that business, basically directing the operations, overseeing the growth, and doing the higher level functions of the business rather than the baseline work. But again, if you have no interest in operating a business in the US, then the E2 visa is likely not a suitable option for you. Now, this brings me to point number 4. If you are looking to run some sort of a passive business, for example, if you're looking to own a property and rent that property out to a tenant or some other sort of passive business, then the E2 visa is likely not a suitable option for you because the E2 visa requires the business to be an active business. So again, if your vision is to have some sort of a very passive business, such as real estate ownership and just renting out property to tenants, then the E2 visa is likely not a good option for you. And that brings me to point number 5. Point number 5 is if you are uncomfortable with the idea of putting your funds at risk before securing the E2 visa, then the E2 visa is likely not a suitable option for you. Now, let me explain what this means. One of the requirements for the E2 visa is that you must put your funds at risk. One example of putting your funds at risk is by actually spending the funds. For example, let's say you're investing $100,000 into your E2 business. So you take those funds from yourself personally, you deposit them into your business bank account. Is that enough? Just depositing the funds into the business bank account? No. The immigration regulations would consider that those funds are not at risk because you can easily pull those funds back out, transfer them to yourself personally again, and that's that. So to prove that your funds are at risk, one way to do so is by actually spending those funds, going out and buying inventory, buying equipment, leasing an office space, and performing those various actions to actually spend the money. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You're spending all that money to become eligible for the E2 visa, but yet there's no guarantee that you're going to get the E2 visa approved. And for many investors, this idea of undertaking this risk and putting those funds at risk without a guarantee that they're going to get the E2 visa is very uncomfortable. So I do want to mention that in some cases, there's a way to minimize the risk through the use of escrow. And escrow, in my practice, I've typically seen it used in the context of acquiring an existing business. For example, let's say that there is a business for sale, you put an offer on it, the offer is accepted. There are ways to structure an arrangement through escrow where rather than transferring the funds directly to the seller, the funds are held in escrow, and there has to be specific language in the escrow agreement, and it's very important that this is done properly. But if done properly, the buyer and the seller can agree that the funds are only to be transferred to the seller in the event that the E2 visa is approved. And by using escrow in this way, an E2 investor can help to shield themselves from the situation that we kind of discussed earlier, where they've invested all this money and, God forbid, for some reason, the visa were not to get approved. All that to say that, of course, the funds have to be put at risk. It's part of the E2 requirements that the funds be put at risk before applying for the visa. And in some cases, this can be uncomfortable and this can be too risky for an investor to do it. And if that is the case, if putting the funds at risk before having the visa is not feasible to you, if this is not a level of risk that you're willing to undertake, then again, the E2 visa may not be a suitable option for you. Of course, we just mentioned that there is this way of using escrow to help minimize that risk, but if overall the concept of putting the funds at risk before securing the visa is not doable, then again, the E2 route might not be suitable for you. So there you have it. We just went over 5 reasons why the E2 visa may not be the right avenue for you to get a visa to the United States. I hope this video helped to give you some clarity on some of the elements of the E2 visa. As always, I want to thank you for sticking around for this video. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this information, please feel free to share this video with them. We're all about empowering you with knowledge. So the more people that can watch this video that can actually benefit from this information, the better. Again, thanks so much for sticking around, and I will see you on the next video.